There's some guys that I'm friends with now that are working for the team that they had to stitch his eye, glue his eye back shut because I'd opened it up. There's some story. There's no videos out there, but there's some stories out there that like no one knows about that I try not to bring up, but in this case, so it was like a situation where he.
And here we are. Guys Being Dudes, episode 21. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening to Guys Being Dudes. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course, if you're a visual learner, then YouTube. But Luke, how's this Tuesday going for you, man?
Man, it's episode 21, baby. I'm fired up. It's a little chilly, but I'm ready. Cold. I'm ready to go. So, let's get this thing rolling.
Yeah, no, it's a little chilly. You're right. But hey, no, today we have an awesome guest on today. We know we're fortunate enough to find some time with him today as he's joining us here in the barn on this very, very cold Tuesday morning. But no, he's a private gym owner defying the odds every single day of running a successful gym. And not only is he a well-liked man, he's well-respected in the community, especially between the collegiate athletes and friends that I know. Everyone's competing at the highest level. They seem to always be training with you. So, ladies and gentlemen, open up your ears today. Join us in this conversation, and please welcome Mr. Brandon Bullett. Brandon, how are you doing, man?
I'm good, guys. Thanks.
Yep, no problem. What do you do today? How's your day going?
It's good. We talked a little bit about the morning start, but that's just the bottom, and then the way to go is up. So
things happen, dude. Things happen. You just gotta adjust.
It's how you adjust. That's right.
Yes. Well, first off, Luke and I want to appreciate your thank you for coming on the show today. We know you're a pretty busy man, and you got a gym to run. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It's big time around here. You guys are popping up and seeing you guys everywhere. So
thanks.
I appreciate the offer.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's always good to hear.
Be a great one. Yeah,
that's always good to hear. We usually hear it from our friends, so hearing it from a guest today, that's awesome. That means we're doing something good. But so today you own the gym, and from all the success stories that I've heard in the past, there's typically it's never an overnight story.
Sure.
So today, I want you to start off by telling us a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So I grew up in Syracuse, New York, a long ways away from here.
Yeah.
So growing up playing all sports, baseball, basketball, soccer, backyard football, nothing really like a sanctioned football program, but I'll always played in the backyard. I remember I grew up around guys like Patrick Corbin.
Okay.
Obviously, he's playing for the Nationals now.
Yeah.
Him and I used to sling in the backyard and
wow, that's
fun.
crazy.
Yeah. And then growing up in New York, playing all those sports, I played hockey, but didn't start until I was 15. Put my first pair of skates on when I was 15 years old, and picked it up. I would like to say relatively quick, and played a little college baseball in 07, 08, and then a little bit into 08 and 09, and then just desired hockey a little bit more, and I wanted to try that avenue. So ended up getting, I guess, lucky enough, I wouldn't say good enough, but lucky enough to get an offer to play in Bakersfield for a junior team that was just starting up, and that's when I moved out, and I think it was like the summer of 2009. And then played 09 and 10 season in Bakersfield, and then got lucky enough to go to a team in Phoenix. And we ended up the league's no longer here. The Fresno Monsters play, but they're not in the league that it was when I was there. So we ended up winning the cup in that league that year, which was my only year. It's basically junior hockey is from 15, 16 to 20-year-olds, and then at 20-year-old you kind of age out, and then it's either moving on to working life or trying to go to college somewhere like that, or playing pro hockey. I was lucky enough that some people saw me, and I ended up playing about 3.5 years of minor league pro hockey.
Wow.
All over the place. I think I had some tryouts in Texas, ended up sticking with a team in Indiana. It was like a level one, consider it to baseball. You have your low A's, your high A's, your double A's, stuff like that. So I was bouncing around between low and high, and kind of made a high single A team, just running around for a couple of years. And, basically people like that, you call them like a, suitcase, living out of your suitcase, basically.
Is that what you were doing?
Pretty much. I mean, you had and it's kind of funny now because the things that's going on with minor league baseball, like with the housing and stuff like that, they had housing for us. So they had us up in apartments. They had us
really?
up with, Wi-Fi and sponsors and stuff like that. And
Now, at
sponsors.
what age are you around here?
So
Because you
that's
said
going to be
15 to 20.
2012, 2000. So like 2012, right? So that's 9 years ago. So
Okay.
I'm 32 now. So I'm, 20.
Okay.
Early
21,
20s,
22.
yeah.
Early 20s.
Wow.
So played a couple of years and ended up having a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and he was born in 2013, and I hung the skates up then and moved out here, and that's when I kind of started working at the rink. I was giving some lessons, training some kids on the ice, and then I would, they'd be like, "Hey, can I go to the gym with you?" Because at the time I was still trying to turn it back around and potentially play.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to leave that door. I didn't want to shut that door all the way.
That's a tough door to shut.
It is a tough door to
Yeah.
shut.
Yeah.
Especially as a competitor.
So yeah, especially as a competitor. So I was still working out, and kids were like, "Hey, can I go to the gym with you and train?" And that's where I started. I'm like, maybe this training stuff actually might work. Because originally, when I was going to college, I was to be a cop, so I was going for criminal justice, and my biggest thing was trying to be, like an investigator, FBI, or something cool like that.
Yeah.
So, but then early on, my senior year in high school, I actually tore my rotator cuff, and I was lifting, like I was really getting into lifting, I would say sophomore, junior year of high school, and I was enjoying it. A couple of buddies and I, a couple of my hockey buddies and I were going, and we were, lifting like crazy, probably like a bunch of idiots. I look back now and I'm like, yeah, I definitely was an idiot. But I was big into lifting, like I said, sophomore year of high school into the junior year and senior year. And then once I got in my senior year, I actually tore my rotator cuff in my left shoulder. And the doctor was like, "Hey, you're either going to get surgery or you have to rehab this like crazy." And I was like, I don't know if I would want to get surgery. Heard a lot of bad stories about shoulder surgery. So I wanted to stay away from that as best as I could.
Yeah.
And then just started hanging around a couple of my buddies at he had a PT clinic, and I was kind of hanging around Syracuse Crunch at the time, and a couple of their strength coaches were, showing me some stuff, and I'm like, I kind of like this stuff, and I got into it then, and then I continued it through college and was, reading articles and books and whatever I could get my hands on. Started to look at guys, like Mike Boyle and Eric Cressy, and guys like Tim Caron later on in my life, but following those guys and looking at online articles as much as I could, and I'm like, I kind of like this stuff. So once I got back to, kind of fast forwarding back to the story where I was working with hockey kids in the rink and stuff like that, and they were going to the gym with me, and I was working with them, and I'm like, I kind of enjoy this,
Yeah.
So did you end up like beginning to love it when you were hurt and you had like these, you wanted to figure out how to heal yourself, or did you just start liking it, early on when your friends are coming with you to the gym, you're helping them out, hey, do this, do that?
Yeah, so, I would say I started really I was really interested when I got hurt. Trying to figure, and I wasn't the most, like I wasn't the biggest kid back in high school. I was average, as far as like physical qualities go. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the strongest. I just probably worked the hardest. And then once I started to find out that a little bit of working out and a little bit of training, like got me just a little bit better and a little bit faster.
Just got you amped.
It's funny. Everybody says like, you're probably faster now. Cause I went back home for some turkey bowl tournaments and stuff like that for Thanksgiving. And I'm blowing by guys. Like as I was getting older, I was getting faster just because the ways I was training and again, training correctly is kind of where it gets you to what you're actually desiring. So,
well, from the average Joe that's walking on the day-to-day streets right now, way more than about the human body and the way it works, what you can't do, what you can do, what helps. So, just that alone, that puts you in that 1% tier above everybody else. Because sitting here right now, I can tell you, that like 20,000 times as much as what I know right now. So, like, I bet that gives you that competitive edge too when you go back home for this year's Turkey Bowl. You're gonna be quicker than last year.
Certainly, yeah. So, we'll see.
Yeah,
I'm getting older too. So,
are you going back?
I don't know. I don't think so this year. Might try to find something around here if there is Turkey Bowl or anything like that.
Now with the hockey deal, you said the junior league, you went to Bakersfield. So did you come from Syracuse straight to Bakersfield? Is that how you got connected with the West Coast kind of?
Yeah. So there was a guy that played hockey for the Syracuse Crunch, which is an AHL team. They're directly below the NHL. At the time, he was the Syracuse was affiliated with the Columbus Blue Jackets. And at the time, a guy that played for Syracuse was from he had played in Bakersfield, way back in the day with guys like Paul Bullett. And the guy, Paul Bullett, who I just named, ended up being the coach of the junior team that I went to. So by that connection, he was able to, the guy that was playing for the Crunch at the time, by the name of John Morassi, he was like this big fighter. Because back in that day, fighting was like the stuff in hockey.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, no, it really was.
you'd go to a hockey game just to watch the fights.
Yeah.
You know, now that stuff's getting faded out. But
Yeah, it's definitely faded out, especially between all the leagues.
yeah,
Like-
and it's still, I would say it's still good, you know, decent time to time. There's some rivalries in the NHL right now that are going, and you know the fights are still coming, but it's not as
nothing like it
much.
used to be, yeah.
So
There would be blood and all that.
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
I know for sure.
yeah, everybody would say I went to a fight and a hockey game broke out. You know, so
There you
it was
go.
pretty funny. But yeah, so that guy John Morassi used to play in Bakersfield with Paul Bullett. You know, like I said, way back, and they had a connection because they played together. And Paul had actually reached out to John when John was playing in Syracuse and said, "Hey, you know, is there anybody you know that you know is a little bit more aggressive, a little more physical that you would recommend to send out to our team?" And for junior hockey, it's not like travel baseball. Like junior hockey, like even the Fresno Monsters now, we have guys in from Europe, whereas like Sweden, Finland, places like that, like all over
you name
the
it.
world,
Yeah.
that are coming in to Fresno to play hockey.
Now, how are the Fresno Monsters? Because I know nothing really about hockey.
Sure.
I just started getting into it actually just this last week. But are the Fresno Monsters like relatively big enough for people to be coming from other countries of the world and other parts of the world, or is it just something that they just want an opportunity and they just boom, Fresno Monsters kind of land with the Fresno Monsters? Like, how does that happen? How does a guy from Australia or Sweden get connected with you or someone else on the Fresno Monsters and start playing?
Yeah, so some the European guys, some of them have agents that'll start to reach out. Some situations where the kids will reach out themselves to coaches. There's things called showcases that kids will travel in. So there's usually showcase in like Vegas that they'll come in and they'll send like the head coach from the Monsters and other organizations as well. They'll all go there like scouts, and they'll watch these kids play. And after, they'll talk to these kids and say, hey, would you be interested in coming? Things like that. There's connections through teams. So they have junior leagues out, in Sweden or Finland or anything like that. Usually they have youth leagues that go up to what's called, they call it AAA, which is like 18-year-old kids.
Okay.
Then what they'll do is they'll reach out to these organizations, from like the head coach of the Monsters. We'll send an email out, hey, any guys that you would recommend for us that are looking to play junior hockey and looking to kind of move on to that next level. So they'll send guys over, or they'll send contacts over and say, hey, get a hold of this kid. So there's multiple avenues on ways to get around. But yeah, people are actually looking to come to Fresno from places like Sweden, Finland, Europe.
That's pretty cool.
Russia, places like that. Like we've got a couple of Russian kids. We've got some kids, like I said, from where's Borat from?
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. We got a kid
that's
from
where I'm born,
Kazakhstan.
yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
insane. Time out. I'm sorry to interrupt right here. So
Yeah.
last episode 20, we got into where like kind of our backstories and all that.
Okay.
He was born in Russia, in Kazakhstan,
in
Russia.
Kazakhstan.
Yeah, I was born
Yeah.
in Kazakhstan.
And
Adopted and everything.
You know what's insane? My dad watches the podcast, right? And he sends me a picture of the Borat cover, and he goes, "You know where this was filmed?" And I'm like, and I have no idea. I did not know that until
really?
literally last night. And it says there Kazakhstan. I'm like,
Yeah.
no way.
Yeah, whole story of him. Yeah.
Freaking Borat.
That's why.
That's crazy.
That's why we were talking.
that's
I was
why
like
we were,
Borat.
that
Yeah.
makes
joking
so
around.
much sense. But yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, so we have a kid in there, and I was joking around. First day I met him, he was, telling me his name and where he's from, and I was like, "So you know Borat?" And then he just, all the kids start laughing.
Yeah.
They probably already said that, before I even met him, but pretty funny.
Going back a little bit, right? Because for people here, right, for like the Central Valley, hockey's not like a common sport.
Right.
I like hockey because my dad, that's been his favorite sport, and so that's kind of what I knew growing up in a sense. But for someone like you, right, and you said you started late, 15, right, and you were playing baseball and all the other sports before.
Yeah.
So what was it about hockey that kind of caught, really, that just made you want to keep going about it?
I would say for me, the rough stuff, like the fighting and the hitting, and that was kind of something that really drew me. I wasn't the best skilled guy. So that's where I was saying, by luck that I got to where I got to. But really just the physicalness, in baseball, you got your mound visits, or not your mound visits, but you got your charging of the mound, then that, I mean, I love baseball. I always love baseball. I love the sport, but I feel like hockey, when I was playing, hitting guys and just the physicalness and the nature of that kind of really drew me.
The adrenaline.
In juniors, you could fight. So back when we played, back when I played, we could take our helmets off. I'm sure if you look it up on YouTube, there's some times where you could pull up my name and then you see the helmet coming off. And, we would square up at center ice, and nowadays the rules are if the helmet comes off, the fight's over. It used to be when the fight goes to the ice, then that's kind of like a unwritten rule that you kind of stopped. Not everybody followed it, but for the most part, the guys that really had that type of job and they knew the rules of fighting, to where once it goes down to the ice like that's it. You don't hit a guy when he's down. So I think that nature of the sport really drew me.
And it's a very they take that sport very respectfully, right? Like like the players, like kind of how you're saying with the fighting, like once they're down, like all right, like they're not just gonna keep pounding on them, like they know it, they did their thing. Like I've just heard from other hockey things that it's kind of one of that sport in a sense that it's just more about, it's a very respect thing in a sense. I guess all sports are too, but that one in particular is exceptionally
like they're not fighting because they hate each other.
I'm not talking about all fighting. I'm just talking about general hockey. But
in a sense.
No,
I would say for the most part,
when they're fighting, they're fighting to fight.
They're
fighting because somebody pissed off their captain or somebody like that.
So why do they fight? Like why would they be like, yo, Bullett, you go whoop some ass. Let's go. Get your ass up.
There's a couple. There's a couple reasons. One, like energy. When you've got a guy that can fight pretty well and he wins most of the time, or it's hard for him to lose. Energy is one that you take it on. So early in the game, just trying to tell the other team like, hey, this is like we're more dominant. Something like that.
That is true.
Wow. So like fighting's like that other edge to hockey.
It's part of the game. Yeah,
it's part of the game.
It was, and sometimes it is still.
Yeah.
Other times there'll be a cheap shot, like you said, on the captain or some of your more skilled guys that can't do that, and other guys know that. So on the other team, if they're physical guys want to try to get your like scoring guys or your skill guys off their game, that's another edge. Is they'll try to take some runs at them, and sometimes they'll hit them from behind or illegally, or they'll throw an elbow, or one of the things that you don't want the kids to do is take a hit to the head. So sometimes like a dirty hit like that. There are some guys that will cross that line and be dirty and kind of disrespect the game or the play, if you want to call it that. But sometimes people just try to push the envelope and take it to the next level as far as intimidation factor. And then you as a they call them enforcers, or somebody that's going to take it upon themselves to say, hey, like you're not going to be able to do that to our guys, because if you do, then I'm coming after you. And it's kind of like it's almost like protection. And then if you feel confident, and like I got my guy over here, like if I got Bullett over here and I know he's going to beat shit out of someone, then I know I'm going to run around. I'm going to play my game. I'm going to score. I'm not going to feel like I have to look over my shoulder and always make sure where I know where someone's at, because if someone does come for me, that guy's coming for you. So it's
wow, this is awesome. I feel like I'm learning a whole new game right now.
It's a huge element of hockey.
No, it definitely is. I'm over here just seeing like they're ice skating, trying to hit a puck in a net.
The one thing
and you do have your rivalries and your hatred between maybe fighter to fighter or team to team. And
did you have any of those?
Oh, I had a couple.
Yeah.
I had not that it was because I hated the guy or anything like that. So Bakersfield and Fresno started junior hockey the same year. So Bakersfield, the year I played in Bakersfield in 2009, Fresno Monsters' first year was that year as well. So they had some guys on their team that were brought upon to do that type of stuff, and I was brought to Bakersfield to do that type of stuff as well. So there were some kids that were on Fresno that played for our team in Bakersfield, and that were hearing from their friends that they had brought some guys in just to for us to fight and to kind of kindle that rivalry up and get that flame going. And I remember the first time, so we actually played each other the first weekend of each team's existence. So we played on I think it was Saturday game. The Friday's game I had 2 fights. Saturday's game I had 2 fights. And back then you could have 2 fights and then that was it. Like you got kicked out.
Yeah.
But I had 2 fights in the first, 4 fights in the first 2 games against Fresno, and then it started from there. So they brought a guy in the next game that we played to try to fight me, and that didn't work out so well for them. There's some guys that I'm friends with now that are working for the team that they had to stitch his eye, glue his eye back shut because I'd opened it up. There's some story. There's no videos out there, but there's some stories out there that like no one knows about that I try not to bring up. But in this case, so it was like a situation where he brought this guy in. Fresno brought this guy in to fight, and during warm-ups, like that's the time where you're on the ice together. One team's on one half, the other team's on the other, and we're trying to start that intimidation factor right there in warm-ups. And kind of my thing was I sat by the center ice line to where you're not supposed to go over. So where you guy steps over, and as a team you're like, yeah, this is our territory. So I would always kind of, antagonize and try to step over that line and really skate over there and shoot pucks down. And just, again, you try to annoy and get them off their game. So I was doing that. And then one of their guys came up to me and he's like, hey, you don't want to mess around with this guy. We just brought him in. He's coming for you today. And I'm like, all right, sounds good. Like, let's go.
Let's go.
Tell him first time he's on the ice, I'm ready to go. So we get on the ice a couple minutes into the first period. And there's some guys that work for the Monsters now and that actually live here that were witness to this. And we had kind of locked into each other, and I was turning towards their bench and just like waving, like, come on, like keep coming, like, and the guys punching me at the same time.
Wow.
And that was one of the things like I could do well is take a punch and kind of absorb it. And then I think like, 2 punches later, he turned. He's like, what are you doing? And I was like, keep going, and he's like, you're sick, you're nuts. So he threw 2 more punches, and I'm still waving, like getting the crowd going, like looking at the Fresno Monsters bench. And then all of a sudden, after like the second wave, I just turned one, lights out, and then their trainer had to come out, take him off the ice. They sewed his eyes shut. So
no way.
He's a badass.
That is sick.
So Mr. Bullett, do you ever think about UFC?
Actually, I did have talks about it before.
Really?
I was training while I was playing juniors, just in case. Like I'm like, I might, but that door is way shut right now.
That's
funny, man.
That's pretty sick, man.
Yeah, no, that is definitely cool.
So I remember the Fresno Falcons. So before the Monsters was Falcons, right?
Yep.
And were the Falcons? They were like more of a professional team, or and they weren't the younger guys.
Correct. Yeah. So the Falcons were actually a professional team. Those guys actually got paid to play. So in juniors, some levels there's kind of like 3 different tiers. The bottom tier is where you actually pay to play. Like you pay a stipend each year as it's like a playing fee, whatever. Okay. It's actually quite a bit of money. It's like $7,000, $7,500.
Wow.
Because you got to pay for all the ice time. You got to pay for all like the gear, all the some of the travel stuff. I'm sure is mixed in there, but you actually have to pay to play. And then as you climb up kind of the tiers, there's tier 2 and tier 1, which is like the USHL. Those guys don't have to pay to play. They don't get paid to play, but they don't have to pay. So
it's like an invite.
Yeah. So it's like, if you're good enough, that's where you're going. So
I mean, you said you played for Bakersfield, right?
Yep.
And then so how did you end up becoming a coach for the Fresno Monsters? How did that?
We don't know still to this day. We have no idea. No, so I met a girl from Fresno. And then that's who I ended up, having my son with. But it was funny. It was late. It was at the actually end of the year. We had some friends, like I said, some kids on the team played for Bakersfield. We're from Fresno.
Okay.
So on some off weekends, we'd sometimes come up here, hang out. Sometimes people from up here would go down to Bakersfield, and off the ice you make friends. Yeah. And we made some friends from up here, and I ended up meeting at the time, which not at the time, but we ended up dating later after that season. So I ended up meeting her and flying out and taking a trip out here, and we kind of hung out, and then that's when we kind of started dating. And then I moved here after we found out, my girlfriend at the time was pregnant. I played hockey and then ended up moving here. And the guys at the rink, the hockey players, like again, we're off the ice. You're cool sometimes.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's some people that don't like each other off the ice, but off the ice, it's a different person, different story. And a lot of guys from here, early on when I was dating that girl, I would come to like parties with her and see other guys, and they're like, "What the hell are you? What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
that's how you roll."
My girlfriend, started to come in, and this is my city now. No, so no, I'm just kidding on that. But then we go to some parties and meet some families and meet a lot of good people. And like I said, I started working at the rink, giving some hockey lessons, and people start to really kind of learn who you are as not a hockey player and not a guy trying to knock guys' heads off.
Right. As a human.
As a human, yeah. So ended up moving here and meeting a lot of super nice people. And there's some people that, at the time, like there's some fans for the Fresno Monsters when I was playing against them that the first weekend I had beer thrown at me. I had beer dumped on me.
No way.
I had like coins, pennies, quarters thrown at me when I was in the box off the ice. People were throwing batteries, pretty much anything that they could find. Like, it was nuts.
Here in Fresno?
Yeah, it was nuts. I had a diaper thrown at me, a full diaper. Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah. So it was rowdy, but I mean that's just how it is. Yeah. So that's how it was. I guess I shouldn't say that's how it is, but
Ron, where do the Monsters play? Selling Arena? Is that where they play?
They play at Gateway right now.
Gateway.
With everything with COVID. Not allowing fans in stadiums and stuff like that from last year. They still play at Gateway.
Where's Gateway?
Gateway is over on the other side of town. So it's
wait, that's an ice rink, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Gateway
no,
Ice Center.
I've been there. Yeah, I've been there.
99 and what's the other street?
I forget what the other street is, but let me tell you this: the last time I was there, it was for like some birthday. I was younger, so it was a while ago. Well, I'm not very good on my feet. Like my balance is just not very good. Like I can't skateboard. Like I can't do anything where I'm involving rolling or anything. So I'm on the ice, dude, and I cannot like do it to save my life. I could not do it. Yeah. I ended up being on the wall. I ended up holding onto the wall for like 2 hours straight because I could not do it. I'd get off the wall, slip, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And they're like, well, you're not getting off the ice, and I'm like, well, I'm staying right here.
Just grabbing along the wall and just walk yourself.
I was like this. I was sliding on the wall like this.
Now imagine doing that with a stick and a puck and guys trying to take your head off.
You're flying. You're going fast.
And you're flying around
too.
20 plus miles an hour.
Yeah.
There's 5 other guys. There's 5 other guys on the other team trying to take your head off, and then there's 4 other guys on your own team trying to get out of your way and stay out of your way, and you're trying to stay out of their way, and then pucks flying around. And
did you ever lose any teeth?
No teeth. No teeth. They're all mine.
There you go.
I did get hit in the mouth once, which scared the hell out of me.
With the puck?
Yeah.
Oh,
I was coming
those
around.
things are heavy too.
I had that same thought while watching a game yesterday. I'm like, dude, what happens if like a puck just comes in and just hits their ass?
Yeah, because you notice like their thing, it only goes to like out here.
The visor.
Well, like what happens?
I've seen it happen right in front of me, and guys get hit. Guys get hit by sticks. People's teeth get knocked out. People's teeth get put through the front lip. They get chipped in half. I've seen in-game stuff like where a guy took a shot off the face and knocked his tooth out, and he came right back out. You kind of sometimes just keep going through it.
Yeah, usually they'll leave them out till the season, and then at the end of the season they'll put all their fake, or they'll go get fake teeth. Like this one guy from the San Jose Sharks, Brett Burns at the time, he was a big, like he had like no teeth, and he had like one little snaggle tooth, and like they were just all gone, right? Then at the end of the season, they took a picture of him. He has like a whole new set. I'm like, what the heck? But they got new teeth, so I was just like,
hey, before we move on with hockey, because I could talk about hockey because I'm interested as hell right now. But no, so. Is this true or false? Because like I've heard this that hockey players do this. So I've heard that in between the webbing in between your toes, they've stuffed like hockey players stuff like Copenhagen in there, like to get like that buzzing feeling. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
Do they actually do hockey players do that?
I didn't do that. I wasn't. I chewed a little bit when I first started, but then it got so damn expensive. Chew's expensive. And then I stopped because I was at the time I was playing college baseball, and I'm like, damn, this is expensive. And so I stopped. But yeah, that's the actual true thing. Like some people would do that, just put it in between your toes and put their socks on and then play with that.
It's pretty gross to think if you think about it, right?
Yeah, there's some quirky things that I'm sure baseball guys do it too, and some weird stuff.
Everybody's got it.
You would be surprised. There's a couple of your athletes I've seen on your Instagram that behind closed doors when they're going into the mound, they're putting like icy hot on their balls and stuff like that. I'm like,
whatever works for them.
Whatever works.
Yeah, whatever works for you.
No, but no. Today, man, you're a gym owner, so I want you to kind of like talk about it. Like, well, how's the last few years? Because you opened it in 2018?
17.
17.
Yep.
Okay. So, a few years in, how's it going for you?
It's going really good. When I first moved here, like I said, I started doing the hockey stuff, and that turned into training those hockey guys. And then I got lucky enough to be paired with a guy, Paris Gaines, and we had kind of worked together out of New Cub Church. They had wanted to put together like an athletes ministry and get some sports stuff going in there. So that was where it first started back in like 2013, 14-ish. So after I got started there with Paris, I just started to build up the clientele. Had hockey kids, baseball kids, couple of. Sorry, let me go back. So I first started with some hockey guys, and then when I got in that facility, I had one adult that it started with, and to this day, that guy is still a good friend of mine. So we actually golfed in the tournament together this last weekend
Nice.
at the Fresno baseball tournament there. So started one guy. And then, there was one baseball player who, I'm sure you guys know, Jacob King.
Yeah, I want to talk about him. I want to talk
my-
about that relationship.
Yeah, that was my first athlete. And then from there, it was by however lucky thing I had, Jacob was an absolute monster. And then it took off, because he threw hard, and obviously he was in Buchanan. So I definitely got the benefit of him being those things. And, I just tried to... I was learning, I'm still learning at this day, but back then it was just trying to get my feet wet and start training kids. And that's where you really gain the experience of actually coaching kids, versus just being an athlete. It's a little bit different of a ballpark that you're in when you're a coach versus an athlete. And coming from the athlete background, I think I just kind of put what would I want to see, as far as a coach, and what would I want my coach to be like. And that's how I kind of approach my training or my coaching. So then, kids here and a couple of kids here and some people here heard about me, and it just started kind of combining and God, why can't I think of the name right now? Or the word.
It's like domino effect. It's kind of one thing.
Yeah,
after
kind of
the
like
other.
that.
Yeah.
Like a snowball effect.
Snowball. There you go.
That's what I was looking for. And people were asking about me, like what I was doing, and I started getting kids from Buchanan, and I started getting kids from Clovis West, and then North, and the kids start coming, and we would get kids from Kerman now, and kids from like driving in from Visalia.
Wow.
But it started nice and small, and I didn't have all the flashy equipment. I had a couple of sets of dumbbells. I bought one trap bar as I went on, and just by piece, I started putting the gym together.
Yeah.
We had some raggedy old turf that we bought from a used turf warehouse. It had holes in it. It had it was like an old soccer field or high school football field or something like that, where it had all the different color lines on it. It was a turf. So on the field turf, they have like the little
The
beads of the rubber.
Yeah.
So those would be all over the gym.
You're the worst.
And I'm like, it was just messy. So especially in the gym, and then you had that getting all over, like it would stick to your skin and stuff like that. So like guys would get down and do push-ups or they do planks or whatever, something on the ground, some stretching, and then they get up and they've had all over it. And I'm like, it's all we got right now, fellas.
Yeah.
So we actually had, when I first started, and Jacob will remember this. You guys know like those Roman chairs where you can get up and you sit in and like your elbows are on, you can do like lifts on.
Yeah,
like that was what we used for a squat rack at the time, because on the end, like how you'd sit like this and have one handle coming up where you can grab it.
Yeah.
But on the end, it had a bar going out like a dip bar that you could get on the outside. So we would put our barbell up there and use it as a squat rack.
Right.
Wow.
But because the bars are so close, if you took a weight off on one side, it would just tip automatically. So we would have to have one guy hold, take the weight off, or take it off like literally the same time. So
Have you ever done that?
That I've had it actually fall on me.
Oh,
yeah, I was squatting one time. This is actually my senior year, dude. Now thinking about it, I was squatting, right, and we get done, and my buddy's going next, and he goes, and I think he went to take off one of the plates. He takes off the plate, and the other, it just literally, I had 45 and 25 on my side, and he took off both of them at the same time. Not one of them.
Yeah.
Took off both of them, just boom, fell right on my foot. I was
that.
I was pissed.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, but dude, so it sounded to me like, the idea of owning a gym was not your original plan.
No.
That was not it. You just kind of like to work out, train the body. You like to, help others too. It seems like too, like that's a big thing. You like to help others improve in their life and their day-to-day life. So, but where was that seed? Like, where was it planted? Like what time, at what time did you go, okay, you know what? I want to open up a gym. Knowing all the risks and everything leading up to owning a gym, because I've looked
possibilities of things not working, everything. Right?
Yeah. So where was it? Where was it planted? Where was that seed planted? What time?
I don't know. To be honest with you, thinking back on it, I think as soon as I started to get, I think I had most of the Buchanan team in. I had some other athletes in. And I started sitting down and kind of doing some math and thinking of like how much would it be to pay for a facility of this size? And at the time, I was in a 2,400 square foot facility. I started looking around online just to see what buildings like that costed, just to move into another place and kind of have my own spot. Because again, we were working at the church, and that's the church's building, and we had to live by the rule. We had to run by the church's rules. We couldn't have any hip hop. We couldn't have any, bad language or even kind of like the stuff you hear now. As far as even though it's not bad language, just talking about bad stuff. And I listen to it now, but at the time I could only listen to some like Christian rap and I would say more mellow rock stuff. And again, rock and roll like AC/DC and stuff like that. There's some secular stuff on there, so it is what it is. And we had kind of gone butt heads. I'm like, how do you expect me to train kids in the gym and get excited and not be able to listen to at least like clean version? But even the clean versions kind of talk about some bad stuff too. So I had to live by the church's rules, and it was what it was at the time, and I just had to do what I had to do to try to get more clients. So I started looking around and I started to find some buildings that weren't too expensive at the time, and I'm like, maybe I can make this as a living. And I ended up meeting the people that at the time was TNL, Diamond Academy, over where I'm at now. And we had talking about potentially me buying that business. So I was looking at some of their revenues and numbers and membership numbers and stuff like that. And I'm like, maybe this actually can work as like an actual living, and do this for the rest of my life. So one thing that I saw that they were missing, obviously, was the training portion. So I'm like, I can make this a good complement to each other. You come, you get your skill work in, your baseball, your softball, hitting, pitching, and then have like your training right there. I'm like, that's a win-win situation for everybody.
That's ideal for the kid, for the parents.
For everybody. So when I started looking around at what other facilities like that were doing, what were they doing as far as, how much they were charging, what type of service they were running, how their billing was working. So I started looking at every single detail, how many employees they had, if we're paying, payroll, what those numbers looked like. So I started kind of diving in and doing my own research on what it actually would cost, like, PG&E and insurance and stuff like that. And then, more equipment and stuff like all those numbers. Staff, all those numbers I started to calculate out. And I'm like, I might be able to do this with the way that I've been going, with Jacob and all the kids that came before. I'm like, if I can keep this building, like the momentum going, I can, potentially turn this into some profits and, heck, maybe make it for a living. And, that'd be my career.
So you took a leap of faith right there.
So I took a leap of faith, and a couple of years later, it wasn't right away that I moved into where I'm at now. It actually, the talks of me taking over TNL fell apart, and then like a year and a half later, they were actually looking to kind of not get rid of the business, but take a step back. That family didn't really want to do it as far as what, like the day-to-day stuff. They lived up north. They've been doing it for a while.
We were there for a while.
So he was like, I'd like to stay and give lessons, but he's like, the day-to-day stuff, Jerry, the dad, was like, the day-to-day stuff, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm getting too old, and I'm ready to kind of take a step back and relax a little bit and live the rest of my life. So I'm like, all right, like maybe we can make this work. So long story short, I ended up moving in there. I rented out the first unit while they had the entire building there. So it's 15,000 square feet. The first is 5,000, second 5,000, third unit was 5,000. Then it came time, the actual building owner wanted to sell the building, and I was interested in it, but he wanted way too much for what that building is. And really, it's just a shell.
Yeah, it is.
There's nothing, like, the walls weren't finished. There was no AC. There was a heater, but there wasn't any like AC there. And really in Fresno, when there's a metal building, that sun comes up in the summertime. That place is blazing hot.
Yeah.
So
It's so hard to control it.
Yeah.
and the turf, we had to do a lot of work to kind of cool that place down.
Yeah.
We still do in the summers now. We've got 2 porta cools and a bunch of fans all over the place. Like, it's expensive to run that place in the summertime when it's hot.
I can
Luckily,
only imagine.
luckily we're out of the summer right now and it's not so
I
expensive.
know.
But like I said, long story short, ended up moving in there. New owner, the owners wanted to sell the building, and we couldn't afford what they were asking. So new owners came in and they had ended up raising the rent substantially, and that's when T&L really was like, hey, we're going to close shop, we're going to close up, and we're selling everything we got. And then I had to make a decision for myself, and at the time I was running a little bit slow. The transition over from where I was at before at the church to here, or to where I'm at now in that building, not a lot of people followed. Actually, some people just were like, when you guys get your place all set up, we'll come back and stuff like that. And it just didn't happen. And that's kind of the shitty part of the business. But
Kind of had to start over. Huh?
yeah, it had to really restart.
Yeah.
And I remember there were days in there, and I was by myself, and I had one of my other buddies at the time who was working for the Monsters. He has now moved on to a position down south in LA with a couple of hockey teams, which, that's ultimately his goal.
Yeah.
But him and I moved over, and he was doing a lot of our social media and marketing and stuff like that. And then I was just focusing on the training, and that way we could kind of focus on our strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And there was days where I remember we sat in there and there was no one coming in, and I'm like, man, did I make a wrong decision? Should I have just stayed where I was at? Should I have just gone back to be a cop? And there were days where no money was coming in, and moving into a bigger building and almost doubling the rent from what it used to be when the old landlord had it. I'm like, boy, this is not good. Luckily I'd saved some money, and give myself some, little bit of wiggle room, and things started picking up, and, we gained some traction again, and then guys started coming in, and, we really did some, kind of soul searching and, a little bit of, pivoting on the business, and started to reach out more. Obviously you got to reach out to start getting some awareness, but being a little bit more intentional with our strategies, versus just kind of going for whoever, putting together some marketing plans and marketing strategies. And that's where we started to really gain some traction. Then I got involved with a lot of the schools, a few of the schools, one mainly being Buchanan. And Coach Fonts has been great, to try to allow me to come in there and kind of do my thing with the school of Buchanan. And then Kerman reached out, and Memorial reached out, and they've been asking, hey, can you work with our school? Can you work with our school? And we made it work right before COVID, and things were going really well. And then obviously COVID shut down a lot of it. But even from there, not just focusing on baseball players, because again, Jacob King was a baseball player, and we had baseball players that were coming, and now trying to show everybody that it's not just baseball players that we work with, and we could be really good with. That's just one thing that we're really, really good at. And then just trying to position ourselves as showing, like, even if you're a volleyball player or a golfer or even a football player, basketball, whatever sport it is, you name it, like, we can train it, we can coach it. We can make you better at whatever sport you're playing, or, we even have adults in there training as well. So
there's always room to improve,
Yeah.
There's
I think the
always room to
knowledge of, again, just knowing what the body does and how the body should work, and what muscles can do what, or what muscles should do what. And then understanding just physiology of what happens when you're actually training like this, or, this situation or that protocol or whatever you want to have, whatever have you. But it really, that's where we can say, okay, we know how you want to be, how you should be trained, from an individual standpoint. And that's kind of where we started to take off. And we did a little bit more, because when I first started, I was doing more like group training, and everybody was in at, say 1 o'clock or whatever. Everybody was in on the hour, and then it'd be everybody kind of doing the same thing. And then I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what some other people are doing around here. So I said, how can we take our our service up a notch and really kind of separate ourselves from everybody else and get a little bit more individualized to where now for that athlete or that individual, like what do they need, right? And then we start developing the more needs analysis stuff and then taking an eval and then saying, okay, this is where you're at, not only movement wise, but physically and athletically, this is where we need to be because this is what the people do at the next level. This is where we're trying to go. So this is how then we map out basically their training to say, okay, we're here today, and then this is where we want to be in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, wherever. And we get a lot of athletes that come in and say, I want to go to college, and they're like, okay, I got a summer to train. So then it's like, okay, we know we've got 4 months or 3 months or whatever we have, and this is how we're gonna progress you from this training to this training, and then get you ready to go to college. And then sometimes I would take it upon myself to even reach out to like collegiate coaches and their strength coaches and say, hey, what does so-and-so need to do? Or what are you testing them on? Do you mind sending your program so I can see what we need to get these people better at? So kind of taking it on my initiative just to, again, try to prepare them to what they're going to see versus just doing what I'm going to do and then not get them ready for the next level.
Yeah, you do that extra step in going, you take that extra step for someone and just that little extra step means so much to someone, dude. Like even, and it's just the little things in life. If you do the little things right, at the end of the day, it probably means much more to someone else. And by reaching out to the coach, right, that kind of gives you that upper edge against anybody else in the industry in the area, you know? Like, I don't think anybody else is going out there and reaching out for them. So that fact that, you bring the training on this side, right? So you're gonna have a whole program, and then also on this side, you're gonna be able to reach out and try to help them yourself.
Right.
That's a no-brainer. Why not go to BPT at that point? You know what I mean?
Right. And it's not.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, and it's not just for athletes, right? You got everybody. Right?
Yeah, we've got adults. We've got people in there. I'd say our lowest age is about 12, and then we've got a guy in there that's we've had a guy in there that's 77, so darn near 80.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Good for him. And I think a lot of the things too is that coaches miss out on, and I've seen it, that people are like the coach knows a lot, because of his prior experience or education or whatever, but I feel like we do a good job at learning from the clients of the athletes as well. One of the biggest people that I really pick their brain as an athlete too is even athletes like Jacob King and our athletes like Haley Dosini, that are superior, in their athletic capability, and they're good for a reason, So when we deal with our pro baseball guys, it's a lot of what works for you, right? And not just like what do you want me to give you, but what works for you? What do you like? What don't you like? What do you feel better? Are there exercises that you feel more comfortable in? So it's a lot of learning from them versus just us telling them like this is how it's got to be. So it's a very big two-way street in our building, and that's where we really like during our initial evaluation with a lot of the athletes or the clients. It's a lot of picking their brain on what they like, right? And then because if you walk into a gym and you're like you're doing this, and you're like, well, I'm not really good at that. I don't really like that. Of course we're going to work on the weaknesses, but at least if you can pick their brain a little bit and understand like why they like to do things. And then you can kind of understand and really create something special of like a two-way street in there and say, here, you like to do certain exercises or this or that. We're going to give you some of that, but we're also going to give you some of what we think will be beneficial for you too. So it's a huge two-way street, and it really, it's really worked out pretty well.
Now, do you feel like, I want you to talk about a little bit of like the intrinsics and extrinsic of motivation factors, right?
Sure.
And how that's important in something like what you guys do, right? And saying that one-on-one time for them to go in there and be like, I want to go play college ball, right? That's their motivation. Boom. They tell you what they want, what they need, what they like, and you come back and, give them that assessment. Mm-hmm. So talk about how important the intrinsic, extrinsic factors are.
Yeah, those are huge. So during our initial evaluation for a lot of our clients, that's really the time for our coaches to find out who this person is, right? And what drives them, what motivates them. We can really find out who's quiet, and who's loud, and who you can maybe get loud with, or who you have to kind of pull them aside and talk to. What's going on today? Is everything going okay? But really during that time is we really try to learn who that person is. what drives them. So we try to get a lot of, what are your goals, right? And if someone's like, I just want to get stronger, okay, well, what does stronger look like to you? And then you kind of try to pull that banana peel back and start to open up the layers. And they're like, well, stronger, we'll just get stronger. And I'm like, well, then we know that person really, is, again, a little bit more quiet, might be a little more reserved. We've got some guys in there where they'll come in and they'll be like, okay, I want this. I want 7. I'm a 7.5 on my 60. I want 7.2. I need to get, try to get below 7. I've been working on this. I've been working on that. And then, they'll come in and you see them, they're a little bit more rambunctious on their own. They're jumping around, encouraging others right away. And again, there's a lot of people from different schools and different backgrounds when you come into the gym, but we really try to initiate and encourage others talking to each other, right, from different schools and different sports and whatnot. But when we find kids that aren't really driven intrinsically and kind of like on their own,
right, then
that's where we try to say as a coach, like we have to be a motivator at that point, right? And we have to be someone that's really encouraging to try to get a little bit more. And really what we've done is we didn't apply a lot of data and we didn't apply a lot of technology into our training because, one, it's expensive to invest in, and then two, we don't want to buy something and just say, hey, we're going to throw this out on the training floor and not know how to apply it, not know how to read the information in the data, right. Because then we're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall.
Yeah.
So we've been investing a little bit in some technology that allows us now to train those kids that maybe are a little bit more quiet and reserved and get a little bit more out of them. Things like we've invested in a jump mat and timing gates like you see in the NFL combines. Yeah. And we've got some technology that measures bar speed we can train specific stuff. And then all of a sudden now, you're using that data to say, okay, for like our jump mat, we test everybody kind of on a Monday or Tuesday, first day they're in the gym, just to see what their progress has been, kind of get a little bit of a readiness test. Yeah. And then we can work specifics in the training program if we see things aren't going well, or if we see things are going well. It's like the kid goes, oh, like my jump just went up. Like we just had a kid in the last 2 weeks go up about 2.5 inches on their vertical. So then they're like they'll just jump on it. All right, let's go. Right? So then now all of a sudden you take that person that's a little bit quiet and they're seeing a 2.5 inch increase on their vertical. Now they're like pumped. Yeah. Let's go. Right. And then they're getting excited.
Now they're motivated,
times like we do 10-yard sprint times. We track those. And then even on like bar speed stuff. So, guys like Isaac Aon over this last, when he was home before he went back to Oregon, he was on that. And basically what it does, it tells you how fast the bar is moving. So you can train either strength or speed or however you want to train. And again, now that from our eval, we can identify, and as we're training, we can identify what Isaac needs more of. Does he need more strength work? Maybe if he doesn't, if he's already strong enough and he's squatting, really heavy and he's deadlifting really heavy, that guy doesn't need to deadlift any heavier because is that going to translate, make him a better pitcher? Probably not. Right. Now let's go after more of the speed stuff, more of the explosive stuff to make him more explosive off the mound and, again, throw us some easy cheese. And he was one of the guys where you get that, you'd strap it up to the bar and he'd be moving a bar fast. And then now that drives a little bit more from him too. And everybody's seeing that and they're like, I want to go do that now. Mm-hmm. So it kind of the technology a little bit, gets them a little bit more engaged. And then kind of brings them a little bit out, and those people that are a little bit more, again, quiet and reserved start popping out. And then even the people that aren't, and they're a little bit more noisy and talkative, now they're even more noisy. And then the gym energy is just through the roof. The energy's there. Yeah. And then now you're like, I want to keep coming back to train here.
Right. Yeah. So you can only imagine as someone working out, you get that kind of energy.
Oh yeah.
Just want to go there all the time.
For sure. But no, so we have to get close. We're getting close to wrapping it up here. So we've got about several minutes left. So we're going to start wrapping up like our main questions. Sure. But because you got to get on with your day. You got people's lives to change today. You got to go get them better and stronger wow. You got to go get them better and stronger today. But no, so I got a couple questions along the lines of overall, and hopefully we could do this again.
Absolutely.
We have so many questions. Like I have so many questions here, and we just don't have time. But what was your vision like of BPT back in 2017 compared to what it is now?
I would say my vision is survive back then.
Yeah.
now at that point and kind of build on that, when I was first getting going, and I don't know for any other business owners, but when you're first getting going, you're excited, right? You're excited because you own a business and you got the keys and you can open up every day. But at the same time, you got to pay bills every day, right? And you're like, how do I need to get more people in here to at least cover my butt and put food on my own table? So at that point, how do I survive, right? How do I make it past the first year? How do I keep paying rent every month? And I was reading a book, and it's called The E-Myth, and that was kind of one thing that opened up my eye to actually being a business owner versus working in a job. And I started to see the difference between, again, owning a business and working a job. So then when I started reading that, I'm like, okay, this is where I got to get to. But at the first point, I need to survive, and I need to at least keep the place open and bringing in money so that I can hire that first person to be the technician that we need, right? To be out there on the floor training the kids with good energy, with the same energy I would. So early on, for me, it was just surviving. And then now it's changing to, I need to get more people in here so that I can continue doing this business building thing, more entrepreneurial work to where now we can keep growing. So my focus now goes to, okay, how do we refine our systems so that the customer has a good experience? It's easy to understand. There's not anything that, like, if we come in and a customer is like, okay, this is what I think I'm getting, that something else doesn't happen, right? So a lot of what I do now is, again, I'm out on the floor coaching and working with the schools still, but I'd say my vision now goes to, okay, how do we make it a little bit better? How do we refine the systems? How do we find these young coaches out there that want to learn how to coach, want to learn the right way to coach, the right way to train kids, and then be able to just repeat that, and then still build, right? So we took on the next portion of the building, and we're trying to, again, like build a better system. So from a sports and a skill standpoint, we can now have kids go hit behind us. We have batting cages and pitching cages or pitching mounds, so we can improve. You look at a place like Driveline. They've got their 3D cameras or their motion capture cameras, right? It's almost like a huge lab they have there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So you look at places like that, and then I start saying, okay, how do we get towards there, right? Yeah. I don't know if we'll ever get there as like a Driveline, but how do we start making strides to get those offerings, like get a pitching coordinator in there to say, okay, here's Johnny. Johnny's got a hard time at doing X, Y, Z. And then take that and put it into their training program where they can really work on it. Because you're if you're a pitcher and you're throwing a baseball, you're moving really fast. It's hard to fix things moving fast, right?
Yes.
We always relate it as to trying to change a car tire while the car is moving. Probably not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So you're less likely to make those changes moving fast. Where we can now take you into the gym, after a pitching lesson or some sort of pitching eval on motion capture. And then like there's Pro Play AI and all that stuff out there that Driveline uses. And then we can say, okay, this is good. This is not good. This is not really, this is bad. So how do we fix the bad, get them to the good and say, okay, let's keep working on what drives you. Like there's things that make pitchers and hitters special because again, not every swing or throw is the same. Yeah. Right. So it's how do we take what you do as an individual and make you better. Right. So now we can really individualize our programs even more and get down to the detail of arm angle or trunk angle when you're lifting or, whatever have you from an individual standpoint. When we do our arm care, guys that are a little more over the top will do our arm care up there to individualize that position that he's going to utilize on the mound. If there's a guy where he's a little more out to the side, we'll do that in his arm program. So we can just now focus a little bit more on the specifics versus back when I, back to your question, back when I started. Yeah. I'm not worried about that stuff yet. I'm worried about getting butts in the gym.
Just trying to get people in.
So just trying to refine and build and make the place even better, more fun. Again, we try to find out how to drive new people in, how to make the data and the technology that we have useful, repeatable, stuff like that.
I think the last question that we could leave out on is one that probably, if you're watching this, you're probably asking would be why should someone come train at BPT? And you threw out all these different things that you guys do that makes you guys stand out, and the individualism, the community you guys have, just everything. So why does BPT? Why should they go and train there?
Yeah, that's a super question. I think number one, just the experience and the education that our coaches have. It's a rigorous internship program, so we have interns, and that's the only way we hire. So they have to go. All our coaches have to go through our internship program that goes over all of our coaching stuff. So from understanding exercise terminology, right? Calling the exercises the same thing, and then when we program our exercises for our athletes and coaches are out there on the floor. And if I'm not there, a coach is going to understand exactly what I'm programming, why I'm programming it, and what they're looking for. So they can say, okay, if the athlete asks a question or the client asks a question, hey, what are we doing this and why? That coach can say, okay, this is exactly why and no. Versus if you don't go through something like an education piece and you're like, oh, I don't know why. You just put that on the program, right? So it gives us that team, that community for our coaching point, and saying all of our coaches are on the same page and they know exactly why something's happening, right? Because that's pretty much what you do in a training program is you put exercises in there for a specific reason. Right. Again, not just throwing something on the wall and deadlifting because deadlifts are cool, right? Yeah. Some of our guys don't ever deadlift just because they've got, a poor eval and they're, say their spine's not good and they just can't handle loads from that standpoint. So they go through, all of our coaches go through an internship period. And it's 4 months long. They've got over 300 hours of intern hours. We have educational time. Like after this, I'm going over there. We've got an hour and a half staff meeting, intern meeting to go over exercises and their curriculum today. And it's pretty thorough. It's pretty detailed. We go over basically top to bottom, front to back of what our business and what our training model is about. So then that just gives the client, I would say, peace of mind to say, okay, it's not just a coach they just brought in off the streets just to work with my kid that has no education or experience on the floor. So I would say right then and there, we've got coaches. Actually, we just got a coach from the San Jose Sharks that's been working with the Sharks for the last 5 years. He, worked in Stanford Velocity Sports Performance, so he's got a good resume.
Wow. But he's still interning, I'm sure, right?
No, so he's a coach on our staff. Okay. Yeah. So we have guys from different backgrounds. We got guys with bachelor degrees and master degrees in kinesiology and exercise science. And again, that's where the knowledge and the education then turns into the experience and the coaching on the floor. So right. It's important that our staff is, I try just to go and say, okay, this is where we differentiate ourselves just based upon our coaching staff. And then again, the knowledge and the experience working with certain sports, right? So overhead athletes, you're thinking volleyball, baseball, we understand the shoulder really, really well to say, this is why, you're having elbow problems. Yeah. And especially with the increased play today from all sports, not just baseball, but volleyball, basketball. We get kids in all the time that elbows, shoulders, low backs are hurting, and it's like, well, you haven't stopped swinging, you haven't stopped throwing, and that the body can't take that, right? You have to take time, and then just our education on setting up off seasons versus in season training schedule and looking at training loads and intensities and days off, and that's our knowledge to set up a training schedule, compared to where you're playing and your games are, your skill sessions are. So we can go through and set up like a week to week schedule for you or for their kid or, for themselves, right. And show them like these are the best days that you're going to want to train. So, I mean, there's so many different variables that go into coaching an athlete that I think our staff does a really good job on to show that, that's a differentiator and that's a separator for us, for clients.
Sure. Yeah, no doubt.
All right. That was a lot of information right there. This whole podcast.
Wish we had another hour. Man.
I know. I wish we had another hour too. But no, thank you for coming on. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, we know you're a busy man. We know you got a life and a day to go get to right now. So, like I said, thank you for coming on, guys. And that was episode 21. All right, Brandon.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
You guys can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course, if you're a visual learner, then YouTube. But guys, that was episode 21, and I'm your boy, RJ.
And I'm Luke, and it's another great Tuesday.
It's another great Tuesday.
Remember, like, comment, and subscribe. Most of all, tell a friend. You tell a friend, they tell somebody, boom, we're everywhere.
Yep.
That was episode 21, baby.
Yep.
We out.
Later.